This video and its content are protected by and operate underneath the guides of the Fair Use Act. It will be used for reporting, criticisms, possible teachable moments, but most importantly, my commentary and review. So, hey, YouTube and anyone who gets butthurt, do not come copyright striking my channel. Also, everything in this video is allegedly according to what has been alleged, because even if we see them do it with our own two eyes, hear it come out of their mouths with our own two ears, or read it in court docs, it is still alleged because we weren't there, so we don't know what really happened.
That girl Henny, y'all gotta go to her channel.
The girl Henny, do you know who she is?
She a blogger or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, where this lady come from?
Girl been on your ass.
She on your life, G.
Shout out to Henny over there.
Yo, what's poppin', Henny gang. If you are new to the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that notification bell so that you get notified whenever I do a video. And to all of my Henny gang mob down papers, yeah. Now let's get into this content, y'all. Okay, so as we all know, last night, the news broke that Diddy was taken into custody, meaning that he was arrested, but his records were sealed. And I'm not going to mince words or waste anybody's time, because we are definitely going to get into this, because Diddy's docs have been unsealed. Diddy's docs have been unsealed. And now we can see exactly what it is that happened or that transpired that brought the feds coming to his door early. Because as we all know, and as we have all heard, Diddy's lawyer has said that he was supposed to turn himself in today, but something must have transpired that got the feds to come and pick him up yesterday at his Manhattan hotel, and basically not honor that agreement. So we're going to take a listen to what his lawyer had to say this morning to the press outside of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse regarding Diddy being picked up yesterday. If you are following me on Henny Reviews on IG, I'm not sure I put it on TikTok yet, but it is up there. But we're going to take a listen to what the lawyer had to say.
No, it's not planned. Certainly, it's not planned by us. I mean, he came here to surrender at a time agreeable to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and then they arrested him last night. I spent the evening with him. I was with him till about 1 o'clock. His spirits are good. He's confident. He is dealing with this head on, the way he's dealt with every challenge in his life, and he's not guilty. He's innocent of these charges. We know what the charges are going to be without seeing the indictment. It's going to be racketeering. It's going to be sex trafficking. It's going to be things along those lines. This is what we've been expecting since the searches in March. He, to his great credit, he voluntarily came to New York. Not a lot of defendants do that. He came to New York to basically engage the court system and start the case, and it'll start today. And he's going to plead not guilty, obviously. He's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers. And I expect a long battle with a good result for Mr. Combs.
Do you think he'll be released?
I'm going to fight like hell to get him released, and he should be released with all that he's done and coming here voluntarily. And guys, I'm going to cut it short because I have to go in. All right. So thank you all very much, and I'll keep you all posted.
So he's saying that, he believes that he will be released with all that he's done. We don't know what he's done. That can mean many different things. Y'all make sure that you're liking this video as you come in and pull up to the bar. We don't know if he's speaking about some of the fluff that he gave yesterday to some of the media outlets. And it seems like the lawyer already had like this pre-written generalized statement that he sent out as a mass blast to media or any media that reached out to him, because everyone reported the same thing. Even this morning, the Breakfast Club, they spoke about this, but they read the same letter or they received the same letter that CNN, that the New York Times, because we read the CNN and the New York Times piece last night as this story was breaking. So it looks like it's just going to be a generalized letter that was sent out to everyone, where it's painting him in this light of being this loving father and this philanthropist that, donates and gives and, all of that good stuff. They want to paint this image of him to try to make you forget the case, to make you forget the allegations that have been brought against him and the egregious acts that he's being accused of. So I'm going to play for y'all the Breakfast Club's video that they did covering this topic this morning. And then we're going to get into the indictment, because I know that is what you guys are here for. So let's get into what the Breakfast Club here in New York had to say.
So last night, September 16th, Diddy was taken into custody in New York. He was taken into federal custody in New York. Now, reports state that he was taken into custody inside of his hotel lobby. That I have not confirmed, like the actual location of where he was taken into custody, but I have confirmed that he was taken into custody. Now, I reached out to Diddy's team, but I also reached out to the Fed. So the Southern District of New York is who was handling this case in this indictment. In the statement that they issued, they said earlier this evening, federal agents arrested Sean Combs based on a sealed indictment filed by the Southern District of New York. We expect to move to unseal the indictment this morning, and we'll have more to say at that time. Now,
and that is the indictment that we are going to read.
In addition, so this statement kind of painted a little bit of a picture. Like, number one, it confirmed that he had been arrested, not because you can say taken into custody, and the normal person will have a question like, does that mean he was arrested? Is he just been taken in because they have some questions? Like, what's happening? So the fact that they confirmed he was arrested means that they are going to move forward with something.
He probably turned himself in. That's why you didn't see no pictures of him doing that.
No, they say they didn't. Yeah, so I'm on my way to that. So they use the term arrested, which is that elevates it all the way. And then there were reports that came out that Diddy had been in New York for this past week because he was.
And this is true, because Gene Deal actually had spoken about how there were Diddy sightings all over the place. Now, I'm speaking on that because I don't be anywhere except for in the world of YouTube and now over on Clubhouse and IG. So that's who I heard speaking about him being out here in New York. As far as the confusion with arrested and in custody, I don't know many people that I know of. Y'all knew what that meant. Y'all knew that he was arrested. But what she mentioned here was something that I was saying to myself last night when I first got wind of this, that if he was picked up in the hotel, how did they pick him up in the hotel and nobody whipped out a cell phone and nobody got footage? I'm not saying that that's not what happened. I'm just saying, how did they manage to do that? Because, if I was in the hotel or you were in the hotel and you saw Diddy being taken into custody, you're going to whip out your phone and you're going to take a picture of it. But there hasn't been anything that's been leaked as of yet to the media. If there is, it's going to go viral.
Supposed to arrange to turn himself in. That, according to reports, was supposed to happen Tuesday. So that was supposed to actually happen today. But there are reports that something happened. Law enforcement actually told TMZ that something happened that made them expedite and come a day sooner. So I don't know what that something was. I've been asking that question for a very long time, but I was told that basically there'll be more information this morning once everything was unsealed.
So now, yes, to answer your question, I am that girl, Henny. I don't know where you heard about me from, but welcome. I'm not going to play the full audio because, they are one of those peoples or, organizations that kind of you hit or miss with them. But I wanted to give y'all that information just to let you know what is being what's being put out there as far as how media outlets are taking this, especially here in New York. And the Breakfast Club, shout out to them, is one that every New Yorker pretty much tunes into and listens to. So now let's get into what you all have been here. Wait a minute. Let me see something. Can we get a like check? Because if the likes ain't where I like it to be, we don't have very many views right now. It is what it is. But the likes need to be up there. Hold on. Let me do a like check. There's 131 and there's 58 likes. Come on, people. Can we get those likes up before I drop this hot Henny? So since the likes are not where I would like for them to be in order for me to drop the content, we're going to continue to listen to what the Breakfast Club had to say until those likes get up to a respectable place.
I did reach out to Diddy's team, and his attorney sent me a statement. He said, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Sean Diddy Combs is a music icon, self-made entrepreneur, loving family man, and proven philanthropist who has spent the last 30 years building an empire, adoring his children, and working to uplift the Black community. He is an imperfect person, but he is not a criminal. To his credit, Mr.
Now, I don't understand what all of this has. Well, I do understand. This is all about creating character fluff. This is what we was talking about, how they are painting him in this positive light. Hey, cat eyes. And so this is what the statement is that the lawyer was putting out to all of the media outlets. Happy. Oh, welcome. Austin is a member now. I see the likes are going up. Let's get those likes up, people. This is the generalized statement that the lawyer sent out to all of the media outlets where it talks about all of Diddy's good because it's a distraction. It's a distraction to get you to look over here and paint him as this, not look at this. Let's forget about this and let's focus over here. We did see him, also out of the spotlight, but it seemed like anytime he popped out, something happened. And this last time he popped out, it looks like they said, okay, we about to snatch you up off the streets. That's not funny, but it's kind of funny. So let's see, can we get those likes up a little bit more, people? Shout out to everybody that is down here in the chat. I don't want to hold up the content any longer because we are also on a time restraint with this. So let's take this, let's do this, and we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start the content. We're going to run the content. But y'all get those likes up. The likes are disrespectful right now. All right, y'all. Here it is. Well, maybe I should keep myself down in the corner so y'all can see kind of just a little bit, I'm going to lighten my watermark. Okay, hold on one second. Let's get this how I want it. All right, y'all. Y'all ready? Let me make sure y'all can see. All right, y'all can see. Let me minimize this real quick on my side. All right, here we go. Let's pick this up. All right, so these are the Diddy docs for this latest indictment, which is filed in the Southern District of New York, and it is the United States of America versus Sean Combs, aka Puffy, aka P. Diddy, aka Diddy, aka PD, aka Love. And I'm sorry, when it says the United States of America versus a person, that hits different. Because it's not another person coming after you. It's not the state. It is the whole country, okay? It is the United States of America, okay? And the first count that they're going after him for is racketeering conspiracy. So it says, the grand jury charges. For decades, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, we ain't going to go through all the AKAs. We know what all the AKAs are. The defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled. Now, pause for a second, because they just said he relied on the employees and resources and influence. Employees meaning anybody that worked with him. Resources meaning his connections within the music entertainment. Influence meaning himself and any celebrities that he's had around him. That's how I'm reading that. If that's how you reading it, drop some Henny glasses down in the chat, okay? Now, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, eggs trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. So this is more than just the racketeer, but this is all of the acts. This is all of the acts, okay? Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprise, and Combs Global, collectively the Combs business. Corporate entities in the Combs business included, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, and an alcohol spirits business, a marketing agency, a television network, and a media company. At all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was, at times, verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial eggs workers. Where my bell at? Baby Diddy's diddling everybody. And we knew this. But now, the United States of America is saying that he's diddling everybody. Okay. At times, Combs and others acting at his discretion made arrangements for women and commercial egg workers to fly to Combs' location. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. I'm going to read that again. So he controlled them, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. And that is what we heard in every single case. Now, today is a Diddy day over here at Henny Reviews. So we are going to be going through all the cases of Diddy, but we're not going to read everything. We're going to get into the factual allegations. We're going to get into those things, okay? We're just going to break everything down, because what this is doing is this is showing you that this is a whole history of everything that this man has done. The feds have been watching, and they have been keeping an eye on things. Well, as far as all of these cases that have come out, they've been watching it all. Sorry, I got to put this here because I'm watching something else over here that has to do with Diddy. And once this drops, baby. All right. Physical abuse by Sean Combs, the defendant, was recurrent and widely known. On numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at a LA hotel in or about March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. That's the Cassie video. When a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member into silence. Combs' violence was also not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others. Now, we didn't see that hotel employee on tape, but remember, we said that he had to do something to get people to be quiet. Y'all share the video and y'all get them likes up, please and thank you. It helps the channel get into the algorithm. If you enjoy the content the way you say you enjoy the content, give your girl the like and the share. All right, Sean Combs, the defendant, used the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial eggs. Those employees including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors and other close associates acted as Combs' intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. So remember, we had some cases that came out with him and Harv. Used to work for him. Remember in the Little Rod case that Little Rod was saying that when he complained about Diddy walking around naked around him, that the woman that worked there basically was telling him, oh, that's just how he is. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. Remember in the King Combs case, the one against his son, where the woman said she was a maid, and the other people basically knew that this is the type of people that they work for, but yet nothing was ever done. So if you worked for Diddy, if you are employed with Diddy in any capacity or facet, your behind may be going down too. Just saying. All right, the Combs Enterprise. From at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization, the Combs Enterprise or the Enterprise going forward. Members of and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, eggs trafficking, forcible labor, interstate transportation for purpose of prostitution, coercion, and incitement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Oh, baby. To wet my whistle. That was a mouthful. The Combs Enterprise, including its leadership, its members, and its associates, constitute an enterprise as defined by Title 18 United States Code 19614. That is a group of individuals associated, in fact, although not a legal entity, associated in fact, although not a legal entity. The Combs Enterprise consisted of Sean Combs, the defendant, entities within the Combs business, including but not limited to Bad Boy Entertainment. Where's Farnsworth Bentley? Farnsworth, are you going down too? Are you going to be carrying Diddy umbrella on the yard? I'm just asking. I'm asking for myself because, whoa, you work for Bad Boy. Combs Enterprises and Combs Global, individuals employed by and associated with the Combs business and others known and unknown. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members what did I mean? I don't have my glasses. Wait a minute. I do. Now, I don't like to put my glasses on, and y'all know that. I don't. Don't y'all make fun of me. Don't make fun of me. And my eyes adjust for a second. Okay. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of the Combs Enterprise. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. So this is not just local. It said interstate and foreign, honey. Okay? Baby. The Combs Enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. And we know that because he was also doing things on them boats down there in Miami. He was in Miami. Okay. At all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, was the leader of Combs Enterprises. Okay. Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of the Combs Enterprises affairs. These individuals included certain Combs business employees, such as members of Combs security staff, household staff, personal assistants. Oh, Lord, Farnsworth going down, y'all. Oh, Lord. Oh, no. And high-ranking supervisors, as well as others close associates of Combs. They all going down. They going down. They taking them all down. Y'all better run and hide. And if Diddy don't snitch, somebody tell him. I'm trying to tell you, somebody finna snitch. If it ain't If it ain't Diddy, somebody tell him. They're not going quietly into the night, baby. They not. Okay, purposes of Combs Enterprises. The purposes of Combs Enterprises include the following. A, operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries, including, among other things, record labels and recording studios, an apparel line, an alcohol spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. Now, pause for a second, because this is the second time they're mentioning this media company. I had no idea that he had a television network. I didn't know that. If you knew that, drop a 1 in the chat. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power, reputation, and brand of Sean Combs, the defendant, a musician, entrepreneur. He was an entrepreneur and figure in the entertainment industry. C, enriching members and associates of the enterprise, including its leaders, Combs, and in particular those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes. So if you was willing to conceal this, you going down. Oh, that's right, Revolt. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I forgot about Revolt. Damn. It's still early in the morning. Y'all leave me alone. Y'all know I just got home at midnight, and 1 o'clock. And then I was back up early in the morning, but that's another story. All right, D, preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power of Combs Enterprises, including the power of its leader, Combs, through violence, use of firearms, threats of violence, coercion, and verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Yo, they literally said in here that he used firearms. Listen, they're reading all of these cases. That's it. That's it. And don't y'all be judging me, because I be having blonde moments over here. Okay. If you new here, then you know sometimes I have blonde moments. All right. Don't judge me. E, fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and use of commercial eggs workers. Enabling Combs and other members and associates of Combs Enterprise to engage in unlawful acts of violence, including sexual violence, eggs trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and incitement to engage in prostitution, narcotic distribution, and other crimes, and concealing the commission of such acts. I have a question. What happened to his drug mule? Henny Legal, can we pull that, please? G, securing absolute loyalty from members of the Combs Enterprise, including through acts of violence and threats. And H, protecting the Combs Enterprise and its members and associates, including Combs, from detention and prosecution by law enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, and threats of retaliation against individuals who witnessed the crimes committed by members and associates of the enterprise. Baby, we are only at the end of page 5. There's 14 pages to this. Any glasses in the chat if Diddy going down. Now, I do apologize that I cannot put the comments up on the screen right now because I am reading the docs, but I promise you I will be acknowledging the chat. I will be. Means and methods of the enterprise. Among the means and methods by which Sean Combs, the defendant, and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise conducted and participated in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise include the following. A, Combs and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended eggs acts with male commercial eggs workers that Combs referenced to as, among other things, freak offs. Lord have mercy. Where my bell at? The government talking about the freak offs. The government is talking about the freak offs, y'all. They done used it in the documents. Freak offs were elaborate and produced eggs performance and produced eggs performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during. I didn't know how to pleasured himself during. There we go. Just in case YouTube want to get sensitive. Pleasured himself during and often electronically recorded. Oh, they got freak offs on video, y'all. I don't want to know. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial eggs workers across state lines and internationally. Ooh, baby, this is international. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days. Wait. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial eggs workers. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Didn't Jaguar Wright tell us about that? She told us what was in that Tusi. She said there was something to keep them up, and something to get them up, and something to keep them mellow, and something to keep them docile, but keep them alert enough. It was a combination of things. It was cocaine, it was some Viagra, and a bunch of other stuff that they put together to make that Tusi. Okay. Where were we? I'm going to read this sentence over. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in eggs acts with commercial eggs workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and use of. I'm stuck for a second. I'm sorry. And drug use. So y'all taking all of these illegal substances, and then y'all are, wait a minute, I got to use my sensor. Y'all are, and to the point where y'all need IV fluids. I don't mean to laugh, but goddamn, that's a lot. Damn. Okay, B, members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, booking hotels for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting, cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, commercial eggs workers, and Combs to and from freak-offs, resupplying Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the commercial eggs workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. In or about March 24th, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Well, that gives a whole different meaning to wet. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by their hair. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking their financial or job security or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of victims. Damn. Members and associates of Combs Enterprise, including Combs' security panel, at times carried firearms. On more than one occasion, Combs himself carried and brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims and witnesses to his abuse. In or about March of 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and in Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, as well as a drum magazine. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise enabled Combs' control over victims by following his directions regarding physical payment to victims, advancing or suppressing the victims' career opportunities, and acquiring the controlled substances Combs used to keep victims compliant. Members and associates of Combs Enterprise at times witnessed Combs' violence towards the victims or the victims' injuries caused by Combs without intervening. Instead, members and associates of the Combs Enterprise helped conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs' residence. These occasions included instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. Members and associates of Combs Enterprise also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. Now, this is what Cassie said in her lawsuit are things that he did. Now, it is said that Cassie is cooperating with them, and it sounds like Cassie's case may be the base of this case. But it also sounds like it may be a little bit of Little Rod's case mixed in there too. I think all of these cases have been read by the feds, but I think Cassie's case is definitely the basis of this. When employees witness to his abuse or others threatened Combs' authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of financial and reputational harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violence included kidnapping and arson. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw other objects at people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. So, and if you're wondering where the arson is coming in, remember, Diddy blew up a dude's car. Okay. When Combs' authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement actions against him, including in or about late 2023, following public allegations of Combs' crimes, Combs and members and associates of Enterprise pressured witnesses and victims, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they had experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, Combs and other members of and associates of the Enterprise, among other things, provided these victims witnesses with false narratives of events in an effort to conceal Combs' crimes. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on at least 2 occasions. They got you Miamians. They got you on a wiretap and your peoples. That's witness tampering. The racketeering conspiracy. From at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown, being persons employed by and associated with the Combs enterprise, described in paragraphs 6 through 12 of this indictment, an enterprise engaged in and the activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States. That is, to conduct and participate directly and indirectly in the conduct and affairs of the Combs enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activities. At that term is defined in Title 18 U.S. Code, blah, 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 right? Multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following provisions of state law: California Penal Code 207, kidnapping; California Penal Code 21A, 664, attempt; California Penal Code 31, aiding and abetting; California Penal Code 182, conspiracy. Multiple acts involving arson, chargeable under the following provisions of state law of California. Now they start breaking down all of the charges. All right. So we've got kidnapping, we've got arson, we've got bribery, multiple acts indictable under Title 18 related to tampering with witness, victim, and or informant. So he done tampered with people relating to forced labor. All right. Sex trafficking. Oh, I said it out loud. Selling of one's sexual acts and other illegal sexual activities. This, I don't see how he's coming out of this. Okay, notice a special sentencing factor. From at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, as part of his agreement to conduct and participate in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, Sean Combs, the defendant, agreed to, in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person, knowing and in reckless disregard for the fact that means of force, threats of force. Wait a minute. Let me go back, y'all. Hold on. Got a little thrown off. All right. From at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, as part of his agreement to conduct and participate in conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, Sean Combs, the defendant, agreed to, in an affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, adverse, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person, knowing and in reckless disregard for the fact that means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion, as described in Title 18. Okay, count 2, eggs trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. The grand jury charges from at least the grand jury further charges from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018, the Southern District of New York elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant, in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, adversed, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person, knowing in reckless regard. Okay, hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. I think I have something for y'all. right now. Breaking right now. Hold on. Hold on. We'll come back to the paperwork.
Start the Sean Combs press conference in about 2 minutes. If you have any questions about presentment, I'll come back out and we'll go over timing and give you a few updates. Thanks.
Yeah, I was already watching from my phone. So they are getting ready to show the evidence. It looks like this is that they found. This is the y'all be sure y'all are hitting that like button. It's free and anonymous, guys. You'll never know. I needed a break from reading anyway. I ain't even gonna lie. Let me minimize myself even more. This is live right now. And we'll get back into the reading of the court docs. I mean, I could still read some of it while we're waiting for them to come and show us the evidence that they have against him. But it looks like they may be getting started now, guys. So I'm going to mute up.
Morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, The indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs's crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs's residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs's electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contained images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well that we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SDNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SDNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleiter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Eric Katursky, ABC.
Thanks, man. Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher, Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now, but the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
One more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up, and yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC 7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. Two questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points, but we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliette Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it, the Southern District of New York can do it. And so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from, it's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video, where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it.
Was that at the residence or a hotel?
That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
John Anise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residence? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? So I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Well, look, I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s, 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts along with magazines with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs's safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case. And I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs' attorney said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally and with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity and no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Mike Sisak, AP.
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan last night, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations.
They actually did recover footage.
Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, thank you, everyone.
What part of this business empire is exposed for the church?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Person that is security maximum is your faithful to the board. Okay, here we go, guys. New docs, new documentation has just come out.
Hey, John? John?
So this So this is the rifles. These are the weapons that they had recovered. This is just crazy. And there you can see them. I'm actually going to remove my watermark so y'all can see them clearly and put myself down in the bottom of the screen. So now y'all see very clearly that those are the weapons that they did recover. Now, I remember when the feds went in, people were wondering why the feds went in the way that they went in. It's because it was rumored that he had artillery in his possession at that home. Now, I'm going to remove this from off of the screen. I do not believe, once we finish getting this clear shot, I do not believe that there will be anything else except for probably some statements from his lawyer. And at this particular moment, to my knowledge, I do agree with the comment that was made. When there is an indictment, there is no bond, but we will see how this plays out. It's just amazing to me how this went on for years. This came out back in the 90s. Wendy Williams was the first person to put him on blast about some of his behaviors that were questionable. And then throughout the years in New York, and I don't know about abroad because we did not have the computer technology that we have today. It was well known in New York that Diddy was having these kinds of parties, that Diddy was not somebody that you basically wanted to be with in an after hours kind of setting. There were rumors of him being with men being with women for years. And now that just has a different feel to it when you see the United States of America versus Sean Combs. It hits way, way different. Okay. It looks like they did in their screen on that one. All right. Now, let me just skim through really quickly. Okay, we do have a couple more pages to read. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back into the docs and we're going to finish reading the eggs trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Then we have the count 3, which is transportation to engage in prostitution. And we have forfeiture allegations as well. We're going to read those. And then I'm going to give y'all the new docs that have just been released. They have just been released. Okay. So y'all are definitely getting exclusives as you are on this live today. I appreciate y'all for being here. Much love and shout out to y'all. Let me put myself over here and let's get the screens back and finish reading what we started. I was watching. Thanks you guys for letting me know what was going on. I already had the Associated Press pulled up on my phone because I was watching and waiting for them to go live with the evidence. All right, so we're going to pick up where we left off at, and I am going to start it from the top. And it says the grand jury further charges from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018, the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, advertised, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person knowing in a reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion as described in Title 18, and any combinations of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in commercial eggs acts and attempted, aided, and abetting and willfully caused to the same, to wit, Combs recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, and maintained a person, victim, and attempted, aided, and abetted and willfully caused victim 1 to engage in commercial eggs acts, knowing and in a reckless disregard for the fact that victim 1 was engaging in commercial eggs as acts as a result of forced fraud and coercion. All right. So he was basically forcing them into doing this. And we know that victim 1 is Cassie. All right. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution. The grand jury further charges from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2024, the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant, knowingly transported an individual in interstate and foreign commerce with intent that the individual engage in prostitution and attempted, aided, and abetted and willfully caused the same, to wit, Combs transported, aided, and abetted and willfully caused the transportation of female victims and commercial egg workers in interstate and foreign commerce on multiple occasions with the intent that they engage in prostitution. Forfeiture allegations. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 1 of this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, shall forfeit to the United States any and all interests the defendant acquired or maintained in violation of Title 18, and in any and all interest in securities of, claims against, and property of contractual rights of any kind affording a source of influence over the enterprise named and described herein, which the defendant established, operated, controlled, conducted, and participated in the conduct of the violation of Title 18, and any and all property constituting and derived from proceeds obtained directly and indirectly said offense, including but not limited to the sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of proceeds traceable in the commission of said offense. he is to fork over his properties and money, y'all. If I'm reading that wrong, somebody let me know, but that's what I read. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 2 of this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, shall forfeit to the United States pursuant to Title 18 any and all property, real and personal, involved in, used, or intended to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offense, and any and all property traceable to such property, any and all property, real and personal, constituting or deriving from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of said offense, including but not limited to a sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of property involved in said offense, and proceeds traceable to the commission of said offense. They are coming for everything. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 3 of this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, shall forfeit to the United States pursuant of Title 18 any and all property. So for all of this, they are coming. They're coming for it. Substitute asset provision. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defense, A, cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, B, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third person, C, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, D, has been substantially diminished in value, or E, has been commingled with other property which cannot be subdivided without difficulty. It is the intent of the United States pursuant of Title 18 to seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. So if they can't get to whatever it is that they are looking for, they will take whatever they can until they get the amount that they are looking for. Now, I did tell y'all there was new documentation that came out. This just came out today, guys. This came out during the Associated Press meeting, and this is by email. Honorable, let me move myself. Let me move myself for y'all. I mean, y'all can see the document. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to read the doc. So let me go ahead. Let me put my glasses back on. You know, I don't like to put my glasses back on. Okay, dear Judge Tranowski, I believe, the defendant, Sean Combs, we're not going to go through all the AKAs, was taken into custody this morning after a grand jury in the district returned a 3-count indictment charging him with crimes related to his decades-long pattern of physical and sexual violence against multiple victims and his use of force, threats, and coercion to enact his will, protect his reputation, and fulfill sexual desires. They really have him as like an sexual deviant. You see this, right? In the eyes of the law, he's an sexual deviant. Okay, the government respectfully submits this letter in anticipation of the defendant's appearance before this court later today and in support of the government's request for the defendant's detention pertaining pending trial. As set forth below, there is no condition or combination of conditions that will reasonably assure the appearance of the defendant as required and the safety of others in the community, not to mention the integrity of the proceedings. As reflected by the gravity of the charges in the indictment, the defendant is dangerous and poses an ongoing threat to the safety of the community. If released, he remains a serious risk of flight despite the conditions offered by his counsel. Ooh-wee. They are not trying to let him go. Do you hear me? He's a threat to the community, is what they're saying. Okay, I'm going to read this last part right here again. If released, he remains a serious flight risk despite the conditions offered by his counsel. Most glaringly, the defendant also poses a significant risk of obstructing justice. Indeed, and as set forth below, during the course of the charged conduct, the defendant has attempted to bribe security staff and threatened and interfered with witnesses to his criminal conduct. He has already tried to obstruct the government's investigation of this case repeatedly, contacting victims and witnesses and feeding them false narratives of events as described in detail below. There are simply no conditions that would ensure that the defendant's efforts to obstruct and tamper with witnesses will stop. The defendant, therefore, cannot overcome the statutory presumption in favor of detention, and the court should order him detained. When I woke up this morning, I did not know that this was going to be going down. I did not. Okay. Background. On September 17th, 2024, an indictment returned by a federal grand jury sitting in the Southern District of New York, the indictment, was unsealed, charging the defendant with racketeering conspiracy from in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the indictment, in violation of Title 18, okay? Eggs trafficking from in or about 2009 through in or about 2018 in violation of Title 18. And count 2, the interstate transportation to engage in adult pleasures from in or about 2009 through in or about 2024 in violation of Code 18. A. Combs used violence, threats, and coercion. Since 2008, the defendant and other members and associates of the racketeering enterprise. Thank you for the Cash App. Dang, I haven't heard that sound in a minute. Thank you so much for the Cash App. I appreciate y'all. Okay, enterprise alleged in the indictment, which includes the defendant's multifaceted business empire, the Combs business, wielded the power and prestige of the defendant's reputation as a musician, entrepreneur, and figure in the entertainment industry to commit federal crimes, including racketeering, eggs trafficking, and other offenses. As charged in the indictment, many of those crimes involved the sexual abuse and exploitation of women and other crimes of violence. Eggs trafficking abuse. Okay, it says using the power and prestige of the enterprise, the defendant lured female victims into defendant's orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. The defendant then used force, threats of force, and coercion, which this sounds like it's just more of the same rhetoric. Okay, so the other violations, they're talking about the freak-offs in that paragraph as well. The defendant also coerced victims into participating in freak-offs by controlling their careers, financial livelihood, and housing. We read that in the actual indictment. Let's see what some of these other the other violence is. In addition to the defendant's physical, sexual, and emotional abuse of his romantic partners, the defendant repeatedly engaged in acts of violence directed towards his employees and others. As charged in the indictment, the defendant, often assisted by members and associates of the enterprise, engaged in kidnapping, arson, and physical abuse, such as throwing objects at people, throwing people to the ground, and hitting, dragging, choking, and shoving others. Numerous witnesses, including the defendant's employees and others, observed or experienced violence from the defendant firsthand and sustained lasting trauma as a result. For example, in the early morning hours of December 22nd of 2011, the defendant and a co-conspirator kidnapped an individual at point to facilitate breaking into and entering the residence of another individual, individual 1. Multiple witnesses would testify at trial to the events surrounding the kidnapping and break-in, the latter of which is corroborated by police reports and other reports. Approximately 2 weeks later, the defendant's co-conspirators set fire to individual 1's vehicle. Y'all know who they talking about. By slicing open the car's convertible top and dropping a Molotov cocktail inside the interior. The police and fire department reports extensively document the arson and conclude that the fire was intentionally set. Multiple witnesses would also testify to the defendant bragging about his role in destroying individual one's car. Okay. More broadly, since at least 2008, allegations of the defendant's physical abuse of women and other have been publicly reported in the media, including in Hollywood blogs and on podcasts. Law enforcement reports corroborate the police responded to several instances of the defendant's violence, including assaults against victims and other individuals. More recently, there has been an outpouring of other public allegations against the defendant, including claims of threats and physical and sexual violence dating as far back as the 1990s. In short, the defendant's violent tendencies were widely known. However, at no point during the past few decades has the threat of public exposure to law enforcement intervened, deteriorated, or enforcement intervention deterred the defendant from continuing his abuse. Firearms. These are what we were looking at when they did the press release, okay? It says the defendant and members of the enterprise, including the defendant's security personnel, at times carried firearms, and the defendant himself carried and brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others. Indeed, some victims were aware of the defendant's access to firearms. On one occasion, the defendant forced a female victim to carry a firearm on his behalf, and on another occasion, he pointed a firearm at a female victim. Okay? The defendant continues to have access to, including illegal ones. In March of 2024, during search of the defendant's residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s, with each with defaced serial numbers. Okay, we read that already. 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in the defendant's Miami bedroom closet, stored broken down in parts, along with magazines that were loaded with ammunition, as depicted below. One of the AR-15s had a 10-round magazine loaded with 10 rounds of large caliber 223 ammunition, while a second AR-15 with a 30-round magazine loaded with 19 rounds of ammunition. Ooh, why would you do with the rest of them? Anyway, a large capacity drum magazine loaded with 59 rounds of the same ammunition mentioned was seized from the defendant's Los Angeles resident as depicted. So this was found in Los Angeles, and this was found in Miami. Okay. In addition, 6 legally purchased guns with serial numbers, some of which were stored in gun safes, were recovered from the defendant's residence. Although these particular guns, both the legal and illegal firearms, were seized, their presence in the defendant's home demonstrates that the defendant has access to and surrounds himself with both guns and ammunitions. Likewise, even if the defendant were personally restrained by the court from obtaining new firearms himself, he could retain access to them through others. In sum, the defendant's regular use of violence and threats of violence, as well as the coercion described above against victims and others, fostered a culture of fear in which these individuals believed they were unable to reject the defendant's demands without subjecting themselves to physical violence or other abuse. B. Combs bribed witnesses and obstructed justice. This is just new. This is just dropped, y'all. So y'all are getting this exclusive hot Henny straight off of the press this morning. Okay. Throughout the time period charged in the indictment, when the defendant faced the possibility that his violent and criminal conduct could become public, the defendant and other members of associates of the enterprise pressured witnesses and victims not to report what they saw or heard to law enforcement or to otherwise conceal criminal conduct. For example, and as noted above, in March 2016, the defendant was captured on video surveillance, striking, kicking, and dragging a woman in a public area of a hotel in an apparent attempt to prevent her from leaving a freak-off. Now, that would make sense as to why he was in a towel. So maybe this was like a private freak off between he and Cassie. I don't know. But they're alleging that there was a freak off going on when Cassie tried to escape, and he came running down that hallway in a towel. Exactly. Further and further down the rabbit hole we go. When a member of hotel security staff intervened, the defendant attempted to offer the hotel security officer a stack of cash to ensure his silence. After the security guard refused the defendant's bribe, and after coordination between the defendant and his employees, the defendant's staff contracted other members of the hotel security. Contacted of the hotel security. At the same time, staff members were in close communication with the victim of the assault as well, in an effort to cover up the defendant's assault and to prevent the incident from being publicly disclosed. Within days of the indictment, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel server. The video disappeared from the hotel server. So that means that he got somebody to disappear it. But it wasn't gone now, was it? Because we seen it. Similarly, throughout the time period charged in the indictment, members and associates of the enterprise have reached out to multiple victims on behalf of the defendant to convince them not to report the defendant's abuse. Most recently, in late 2013, immediately following public allegations of certain of the defendant's crimes, including his physical and sexual abuse of women, the defendant and other members of the enterprise made repeated phone calls to victims and witnesses, during which they provided victims and witnesses with false statements of events in an apparent effort to conceal the defendant's crimes. On at least 2 occasions, the defendant recorded those calls on a co-conspirator's cell phone, thereby attempting to obscure his involvement in the obstruction. C, the government's investigation is ongoing. That means this is not done. Just because he's in custody doesn't mean that it's done. It's not done. While the indictment against the defendant was unsealed today, the investigation into his other co-conspirators' conduct is active and ongoing. I'm going to read that again. While the indictment against the defendant was unsealed today, the investigation into his and others' co-conspirators' conduct is active and ongoing. People are going down. As a result of that ongoing investigation, as well as the defendant's charged conduct outlined above, including obstruction of justice and witness tampering, the government is limited to its ability to fully set forth all known details of the defendant's criminal conduct, including details of certain witness testimony, to the extent the court has additional questions about the charged offense conduct or any other information set forth herein. The government is prepared to proffer additional information on an ex parte basis. The argument: under bail reform, federal courts are empowered to order a defendant's detention pending trial upon a determination that the defendant is either A, danger to community or risk of flight. Finding a risk of flight must be supported. Okay, so obstruction of justice is another grounds for pretrial detention by the courts. The Bail Reform Act. So they're basically putting in to deny his bail based off the fact that he is considered to be a flight risk. And they have reason to believe that he is a flight risk, okay? They are also denying his bail or putting in to deny the bail for obstruction of justice and witness tampering, okay? The Bail Reform Act lists 4 factors to be considered in the detention analysis: the nature of the circumstances of the crimes charged, including whether the offense is a violation of Section 1591, and the weight of the evidence against the person. Okay. Oh, 2 is the weight of evidence against a person. 3, the history of characteristics of a defendant, including the personal character, past conduct, and financial resources. And 4, the nature of seriousness of the danger to any person in the community that would be posed by a person's release. The concepts of dangerous encompasses not only the efforts of the defendant's release to on the safety of identifiable individuals, such as victims and witnesses, but also the danger that the defendant might engage in criminal activity to the deterrent of the community. A finding of dangerousness does not require that the defendant have criminal history. If a defendant has a history of domestic violence, holding that prior act of domestic violence are relevant to the determination of dangerousness, because a willingness to strike loved ones often offers probative evidence of tendencies to violence and dangerousness towards others. Wow, I didn't know that. Evidentiary rules do not apply to detention hearings, and the government is entitled to present evidence by way of proffer, among other means. Where a judicial offer concludes after the hearing that no condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the appearance of the person as required and the safety of other persons in the community, such judicial officers shall order the detention of a person before trial. Additionally, whereas here a defendant is charged with eggs trafficking in violation of Section 18, okay, in other words, an offense under Chapter 77, all right, shall be presumed. They're not letting him go. Let's read the dangerousness. The defendant is charged with serious and violent crimes. As charged in the indictment, the defendant has physically and sexually abused women and others for the better part of 2 decades. The eggs trafficking charge, based on the defendant's abusive conduct, carries with it a presumption of detention, and detention is particularly supported by the facts of this case. Okay, and it goes on to talk about how since 2008, he engaged in serious acts of violence and forcing and coercing women to participate in sexual activities and acts with commercial eggs workers by physical force and financial pressure, emotional abuse, narcotics, and how all of this, even the freak offs, all of this stuff is grounds for them to consider him dangerous. All right. That is not all. As set forth in the indictment, the charges against the defendant capture significant additional violence, both spontaneous and premeditated. On numerous occasions, the defendant assaulted women, employees, and others when he became enraged. Okay. And we've read how the defendant and other members of the associates of the enterprise were also and controlled, capable of premeditated violence, resorting in kidnapping and arson when the defendant's powers and controls were threatened. Okay. He's not coming out, guys. He's not coming out. They're hitting him with the obstruction. Okay. How he attempted to bribe the security guard. Let's read a little bit of this. Okay, so we read about him and the security guard, but here's another story up in here. It says a civil lawsuit was filed on or about November 16th of 2023, alleging years of sexual, emotional, verbal, and physical abuse by the defendant, including allegations describing the March 2016 incident. Following the filing of the lawsuit, the defendant stated, in no uncertain terms, let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. Through counsel, the defendant vehemently denied these offenses and outrageous allegations, describing the complaint as riddled with baseless and outrageous lies. It was not until the video surveillance footage of the defendant's attack was leaked to the media months later that the defendant was forced to admit that he had, in fact, perpetuated the disgusting act. Clearly, the defendant is willing to deflect, minimize, and lie, and induce others to do so on his behalf to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. More recently, the defendant has directly and through intermediaries engaged in obstructive conduct related to the matters of this investigation. Okay. So they have proof of him obstructing justice. He is a flight risk. So let's read the flight risk. We're just going to read a little bit of it because a lot of this is repetitive. We've already heard some of this when we were reading the case file. In here, it says that risk of flight, nor can the defendant overcome the presumption that he is a risk of flight. The crimes that the defendant is charged with carry significant penalties, including a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years imprisonment. 15 years imprisonment. Thank you for the Cash App. I appreciate you so much. Okay, and statutory maximum sentence of life. So he's facing 15 to life. And they're like, we ain't letting him out because he is a flight risk. And there is a great possibility that this man may take flight and get up out of here. So we can't afford to do that because he may just make his way over there to Russell Simmons and then they can't extradite him. Mm-hmm. As detailed below, the evidence in this case is incredibly powerful as the factors set forth in the indictment and herein make plain. Dozens of victims and witnesses have provided detailed, credible, and corroborable information against the defendant. These individuals include many who personally experienced and witnessed violence and other crimes at the hands of the defendant. Moreover, their accounts are well corroborated by significant by evidence, including financial and billing records, travel records, electronic data, and communications, including extensive communications by and with the defendant himself. For example, victim testimony regarding freak-offs freak-offs is at times corroborated by other witness testimony, communications with the defendant and commercial egg workers, travel records, hotel records, videos of freak-offs, and records reflecting or indicating payment. Now, I don't know who it was that was in here that was saying that they didn't have no video. Yes, they do. You must not have been here for the reading of the actual indictment, which was the first thing I did. Then we went into the press release video, and now we are reading the documentation that was just released this morning while the press was on discussing what was going on with the case. This is it, y'all. There is videos of the freak-offs. Similarly, a victim's physical abuse may be corroborated by, among other things, video of the abuse, photographs of injuries, reports made to law enforcement, communications with the defendant and others, the testimony from other witnesses who saw or heard about the abuse, the vast and verified sources of evidence described in detail below will be compelling evidence of guilt at any trial in this case. Thus, the serious risk of conviction provides further incentive for the defendant to flee prosecution. Moreover, in this case, risk of flight is augmented by the nature of the evidence against the defendant. The evidence against the defendant, which would be made public at trial, includes substantial evidence that is highly sensitive and has the potential to significantly and negatively impact the defendant's reputation. For example, dozens of video recordings created by the defendant of freak-offs with victims. For decades, the defendant has spent significant time and resources ensuring that his criminal conduct avoids public scrutiny. Given the potential penalties here, both the incarceration and reputational, incarceration and reputational harm. The defendant has every incentive. Incarceration and reputational harm. And the defendant has every incentive to flee to avoid prosecution and public trial. Okay. The defendant's incentive to flee outlined above coupled with the defendant's seemingly limitless resources, create significant risk of non-appearance. The defendant's net worth is publicly estimated to be close to $1 billion. Indeed, the investigation of this case has revealed that the defendant has access to vast funds and resources, including deep reserves of cash, which would facilitate his evasion of prosecution. At least as of December 2023, the defendant had access to dozens of bank accounts, some personal and many under corporate entities, which contained millions of dollars. Additionally, as of December 2023, the defendant had over $1 million in personal cash on hand. The defendant has traveled internationally several times per year since at least 2016, and since approximately 2019 has owned a personal plane on which he has traveled internationally. The defendant maintains 2 primary residences in Los Angeles and Miami. In addition to his private plane, the defendant owns multiple vehicles in multiple locations. He has a personal staff, including assistants, security, chefs, trainers, and others who perform tasks at his command, including transporting him, delivering him currency, securing narcotics for him, and other tasks. And he is extraordinarily well connected both within and outside of the entertainment industry. In short, if the defendant wanted to flee, he has the money, manpower, and tools to do so quickly without detection. The defendant's lack of access to his passport or private jet would not negate the fact that the defendant could easily buy his way out of facing justice. As discussed below, the defendant's legal team has attempted to mitigate this substantial risk of flight by taking steps such as taking his family's passports, attempting to sell his plane, and reporting his whereabouts to the government. These steps have been taken with the precise goal of crafting an argument for bail before the court. While the defendant may have made the calculated decision to consultation with his attorney not to plead before any charges were filed, that calculus inevitably changes today. When the indictment when in indictment changing the defendant with when an indictment charging the defendant with extremely serious offenses carries numerous potential penalties was unsealed, he is now the first time in his life facing a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 15 years with a maximum term of imprisonment of life, in which the government is preparing to provide the charges against him by, among other things, the testimony of dozens of witnesses and victims to his several abuse and evidence from dozens of his own electronic devices and those of his co-conspirators. Given the serious nature of the charges, the strength of the evidence, and the defendant's access to vast amounts of resources, his risk of flight is more pronounced today than it has ever been. Okay, the weight of evidence. What page are we on? We're on page 13 of a 16-page document. This is their weight of evidence. And considering the danger and risk of flight presented by the defendant, the court is also required to consider a weight of the evidence against the defendant. The defendant faces a strong and powerful case here, only magnifying the danger that he could present to others, especially victims and witnesses ready to testify against him, and at the risk he flees. The evidence in this case consists of a vast amount of victims and witness testimony, electronic evidence, physical evidence, and subpoena returns, and other voluntary productions, among other things. Thank you for the Cash App. I appreciate you. As to witnesses to date, the government has conducted interviews with over 50 victims and witnesses. Let that dangle for a second. I'm going to read it again now. The government has conducted interviews with over 50 victims and witnesses, many of whom saw or experienced the defendant's abuse. Many of these witnesses corroborate one another, and their accounts are similarly consistent with the other types of evidence discussed below. The government only expects that number to continue to grow, given that the investigation, which is now public and is ongoing, 50 victims and witnesses to start. Yes, Enigma, 50. They are at a base of 50 people right now. And this is going on for decades. The electronic evidence is similarly vast. The government has sought and obtained numerous search warrants for such evidence, in addition to obtaining evidence voluntarily from certain victims and witnesses. Setting aside devices seized in connection with the defendant's arrest, the government has obtained over 90 cell phones, laptops, and cloud storage accounts, as well as over 30 other electronic and storage devices such as hard drives, thumb drives, cameras, and surveillance systems. I need to give my eyes a rest. Okay, see, now I done took my glasses off, my vision blurry. So you got 50 victims and witnesses, and they've obtained 90 cell phones, laptops, cloud storage accounts, 30 other electronics, storage devices, hard drives, thumb drives, cameras, and surveillance systems. Where you at that was saying that they ain't have no evidence of that? This electronic data comes from the defendant himself. Who tell me you think you invincible without telling me you thinking you invincible? Without telling me that. Clouds, yes, clouds, cloud storage, yeah. The electronic data comes from the defendant himself, as well as co-conspirators, victims, and witnesses, and chronicles much of the defendant's criminal activity as it occurs. They got it in real time, y'all. Could you imagine? Now it's time for Henny to be Henny. Could you imagine that the government agents that have to sit down and watch these videos? What about the tech guy that's got to make this presentable for court and blur out certain parts of the imagery? Could you imagine their faces watching these freak offs? The evidence, let me wet my whistle. Hold on. The evidence also consists of physical evidence, which was seized pursuant to search warrants executed at the defendant's residence in Los Angeles and Miami, as well as on his person and the persons of certain co-conspirators. In addition to the firearms and electronics discussed above, the physical evidence also includes other evidence of freak-offs, including over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and personal lubricant. We keep going back to this baby oil and lubricant, y'all. I think that really mind screwed the government. Because why do you have all of this lube? Finally, the evidence includes records obtained pursuant to over 300 grand jury subpoenas and other voluntary productions. These materials come from over 100 entities and individuals, including communication providers, tech companies, social media companies, banks, and other financial institutions, airlines, hotels, car services, and other travel-related companies, escort services, and even the defendant's companies and wealth management firm. Together, this evidence, as well as other evidence gathered, powerfully demonstrates the defendant's guilt and counsels in favor of detention. All right, we're on page 14 and 16, y'all. The defendant's proposed bail package is insufficient. Not 50 Cent is gonna definitely get custody of his son now. I'm done. Oh, yeah, because old girl was subpoenaed. 50's baby mama was subpoenaed. For all the reasons set forth herein, there is no bail package that can reasonably assure the safety of others in this case, where the defendant has engaged in decades-long pattern of violence against women and others and has used his wealth and power to ensure that his criminal conduct goes unpunished through manipulative and obstructive conduct. Migo, you stuck in here now. In particular, the bail package proposed by defense counsel is insufficient because it fails to adequately protect others from the defendant's violence, impose measures to prevent and detect obstruction, or prevent defendant from accessing his vast resources, including millions of dollars in cash, to evade prosecution or dissipating those assets to avoid financial penalties for his crimes. Defense counsel has proposed certain bail conditions, including home detention with electronic monitoring and a $50 million bond secured by the defendant's Miami property. These conditions are plainly insufficient to address the legitimate concerns set out above. In particular, given the defendant's history of engaging in obstructive conduct, the court must reject the insufficient conditions proposed by defense counsel, which do nothing to prevent and detect such conduct. For example, they go into another case, and it says a case in which the defendant was charged with witness tampering and where obstruction remained an ongoing concern. The Second Circuit revised the district's court's release and the defendant on bail's conditions because of a $1 million bond, which was to be secured by properties owned by the defendant and members of the family by deterred flight, not danger. More specific, the Second Circuit found that the district court's bail condition intended to address witness tampering, which was a general probation that the defendant was not to commit a crime or intimidate a witness, does not all impede to his ability to acquire, blah, blah, blah. Notably, the defendant, okay, that's somebody else's case. Okay, so notably, the defendant's previously proposed conditions did not include provisions related to his case to electronic devices, which, as outlined above, the defendant uses to engage in obstructive conduct, nor do the proposed conditions include information related to or restrictions on access to the defendant's vast resources, including multiple personal bank accounts. So, in other words, you're not giving us enough to say that he's going to do what needs to be done to ensure that he's going to not only not skip bail, but that he's not going to go out there and intimidate people like he's been doing. The conclusion of this is, as set forth, the defendant poses an ongoing sufficient danger to the community, has repeatedly engaged in obstructive conduct, and presents a serious flight risk. The government respectfully submits that the defendant cannot meet his burden of overcoming the statutory presumptions in favor of detention. There is no condition of bail that would assume the appearance and compliance of the defendant or the safety of others. Accordingly, any application for bail should be denied. And we don't have the video evidence, but there is a video somewhere in the evidence. That was a lot. That was a lot. my God. Heard the raid was for Tuesday, but they caught wind of potential fleeing plans. It wasn't a raid. He was supposed to turn himself in today. And something tripped them up and got them, you know. I'm tripping. This sounds like a Lifetime movie. Don't it? It sounds like a Lifetime movie or a really good Netflix series. I'm just... Everybody in New York hope they get jury duty for this one. I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm like, where's my jury duty slip? Let me do this. I'll do this one. But I'm trying to see if they're going to open it up to the public, because if they open it up to the public, your girl may just go there. I may just go there. Who knows? But this is a lot. It gave you a headache. How you think I feel? I had to read it. I had to read all of this. My eyeballs hurt. I'm ready to take a nap now. That just drained me. That was a lot. The indictment, the bail, the denial of bail that's going on right now. But I can understand why they don't want to. Like, Diddy is almost a billionaire. Like, you gonna let a billionaire out and allow him to just be able to go? And we got another update, y'all. I think. Oh, no. Okay. I was about to say we got another update, but we're going to have another update coming. You know, that was just, for whatever reason, it did not give me. I'm trying to keep in. Listen, I'm trying to keep up with the keep up. So the associate, the person who was speaking said that he couldn't go into things, but that's what he couldn't go into was that last little bit right there when they asked him about bail and he said he couldn't get into it. That's what he couldn't get into. But that's what they're doing. They're moving to deny the bail. What you said this better be on TV like the YSL trial. Listen, I think they know that this is going to be a big case and that people are definitely going to keep their eyes on this. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on this as well as things develop. I will do my best to be here. I set out to try to give y'all this content raw, real, uncut, unstudied, meaning I didn't read anything prior to, and to give it to y'all as it happened. I hope that I served that purpose for y'all, so y'all didn't have to leave and wait for this to come out or wait for that to come out. You heard what the attorney had to say. You heard a little bit of what they had to say on the Breakfast Club this morning. We read the indictment in its entirety. We listened to what the press release and what they had to say when they were talking to the press, addressing the press. You also got to hear the bail denial. What's in there? Why are they denying his bail? And we got to hear a lot of what was going on with this case. And you have to remember, this is decades long. Now, I did plan today to go through and read all of the actual facts of his court cases, because we did not read every last one of them. We started reading some of the Cassie and it kind of got overwhelming. We started reading some of the Little Rod and it got overwhelming. But I promise that I will find a way to go ahead and make this case, make these cases maybe into a playlist. I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. Can we bump the conversation? We may have to bump our conversation. We're supposed to have a conversation tonight, but with all of the Diddy stuff that is going on, I know that I'm going to be exhausted. If it calms down within a decent amount of time, then we will still have our conversation this evening. I believe that conversation is going to be over on Pressbox. I don't know that it'll be over here, but I will keep you guys posted as to what's going on with the conversation that we were supposed to have tonight. But this is the Diddy case, and this is the top is being blown off of this. So right now, this is a trending topic I do want to keep up with. I do want to work on keeping you guys in the know, because as I continue to do this, you guys continue to push me to go higher and go harder. And you all are really pushing me into this investigative journalism thing. I love y'all so much for pushing me, because I love doing this. This is my first time actually covering something in real time like this, outside of covering Krishan, Blueface, things of that nature. Actually, no, this is my second time, because the first time I was on live when word got released that Krishan was arrested at Blueface's court. But this is the first time I'm actually keeping up with something, and I hope that I served y'all and gave y'all what y'all needed. Shout out to all of the Henny team, the Henny Snipers Media, the Henny Legal, the Henny Media PIs, and the Henny Gang. Okay, all the Henny snipers that are in here, the wrenches, give them a round of applause and some Henny glasses, because they do an amazing job. And for all of you that stick with me, those of y'all who stuck around for 2 hours listening to this, those of y'all who jumped on whenever you jumped on and stayed on, make sure y'all are liking this video. I love giving y'all this content. I love what I do, and I love each and every one of you, because without no you, there is no me. I will be back. Let me just go through and let me give some acknowledgement. Thank you, Buttercup, for the super chat. She said the feds never lose, and we know that. Happy anniversary to Pretty Ginger. Thank you. I hit 9K. I know you lying. I know you lied. I hit 9K, y'all. Yay, we getting there. We almost at 10K. We 1K away from the 10K giveaway. Okay. Thank you so much, MC, and happy 5-month anniversary to you. Jackson J's mommy said, hit that like button. Thank you for the super chat. Gold Digger, thank you for the super chat. She says, serving up the hot Henny. Show some love, y'all. Henny's working hard to bring the content to the Henny gang. Yes, I do. And again, Pretty Ginger with a super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Thank y'all for all the likes, love, and for tapping in and tuning in with your girl. Hey, Be More, a happy 5-month anniversary. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I am going to go. Yes, 9K, y'all. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank y'all. That may not seem like a lot to others, but it's a lot to me, because I don't know what other people do, but this is organic, and I love y'all so much. Thank you. Y'all not gonna make me cry, because y'all already got that out of me once. But I will keep y'all posted. I'm going to go eat something and relax a little bit, because today is my first day off from my other job. Well, my only day off. But we will be back later as the story develops. Again, thank y'all for tapping in and tuning in. Remember, when you vibe high so the bullshit don't stick. Love is always love, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace, y'all.